YouTube. Here we go. I just realized I hit start on YouTube and hopefully I spelled all the words right. I didn't even double check my spelling. Probably should have done that. So here we go. I can make a change later. 1 second here.
Fix it in post.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ah, I did it. Okay, we're good to go. Episode 68 today of our Healthy Heart webinar. We just keep trucking right along with these webinars and they're so good. So many good questions coming in. It's great. Love it. I'm going to change.
From what I understand, we've been primarily a diabetes business, but we are increasing our heart customers, like catching up to just neck and neck with our diabetes customers these days. So we're glad you're here. It's an important topic.
Yes. And sometimes I wonder if there's just more discussion about the heart after, the things that happened in the year 2020 or what's going on. People are becoming more proactive in their health, I guess, which is great. I've talked to a lot of you who are joining these webinars and you're just wanting to make sure that you're getting your body healthy. And I think that is the huge benefit of these webinars. Yes, this webinar specifically, we're primarily talking about heart, but boy, the information that we share really is for everyone. And same with our diabetes webinar. I think yesterday we were even chatting and someone's like, well, I also have this going on. Should I still do this? And it was like, you're going to improve both conditions if you do these right things, So really it's overall health that we're really talking about in these webinars. And so today we're going to talk about how to know if your heart is stressed. And Cheryl brought up some other fun things that we're going to chat about. So feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. And if you're not wearing purple, it's okay if you want to just sign off right now. No, I'm just kidding. All of us are wearing purple for some reason again. Yeah. But they're different shades on my screen, which is really funny. I know, Cheryl, are you wearing the same shirt as I am, Cheryl?
Yeah, Team Barton.
Yeah, they look different.
The 50th birthday party for Joe Barton. Yep. Maybe I've washed mine a little more than yours.
So I think it's just the coloring. Mine looks navy almost, and that's not right. So, well, to me anyway. And Dr. Saunders got the memo. He's wearing his purple tie. I'm just kidding. We did not. Dr. Saunders and I did not plan this at all. I promise. And anyway, but it also matches your picture or your painting in the background too, which is really cool. Yeah. Love it. All right, so we have quite a few of you hopping on. If this is your first time, please comment in the chat and just let us know that. We'd love to know if you're joining us today. We are excited to share with you. So let's dig into this. First, I'm just gonna mention that Dr. Saunders is a doctor and he's a great doctor, but he is not your doctor. And so before you implement any of the things that we chat about today, you may want to, because I have to tell you to, check with your provider first. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, first time for Susan. Welcome. Shirley says purple is for royalty. I love it. Love it. Oops. Keep going here. We got Marion is back. Ricardo, hello. Don from Utah. Terry Brown is in the house again. And David Brown. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. All right, Dr. Saunders, the topic is how to know if your heart is stressed. And I think we need to talk about what does that even mean for your heart to be stressed? Because when I think of stress, I think of I'm stressed out, right? So what does it mean to have a stressed heart?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so stress is when pressure is put on something. And it doesn't have to be one kind of pressure. So like you were saying about I'm all stressed out. What does that mean? Well, it means I feel like there's a lot of pressure. I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I have too much to do and not enough time to do it. Or I'm being pressured to do something I don't want to do. Or I'm being pressured to do something I want to do. But to have some kind of being pushed into something or having some kind of pressure. Now, any kind of stress will cause your adrenal glands to put out stress hormones. And so if you work out really hard, you're going to make stress hormones. If you go running, you're going to make stress hormones. If you have too much to do and not enough time to do it, you're going to have stress hormones. If the IRS calls you and says, We want all your taxes from the last 7 years. Then that's a lot of stress, right? That's a different kind of stress, and they're all different: physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress. I had somebody who's going through was her husband told her he was gonna get a lawyer and get a divorce, and so she called me very stressed about that. So how do you know if your heart is stressed? What about your heart? Ooh, that's not an easy question. And so all of those things can stress your heart. Like what? Well, running a marathon or just going out for a run. So what if you haven't run at all in 20 years, and you go, I'm going to go out for a run? And so that's what I did one time. My son ran a 10K, and he ran a 10K and didn't just run a 10K. He ran it pretty fast, and he was carrying video equipment while he was running the 10K, and he was filming the whole thing. And I'm not talking about a what are those cameras that go on the top of your head?
GoPro.
GoPro. I'm not talking about a GoPro. He had like this heavy camera equipment that goes on that holds the camera steady. He's got a steady cam with him, and has this big old video camera, Red, and he's making the videos for Nordic Track. Have you ever gone on Nordic Track and they have a screen and you can be running through a forest or running on a track or going through a city or something like that? He did those. And so here he's running like a 10K, running through this with all this video equipment and everything. And so my wife says, oh man, Christian did this 10K with his equipment. Man, that's got to be really hard. I'm like, anybody can run a 10K. She goes, oh yeah, you can run a 10K. I'm like, of course. I used to run like half marathons. I can run a 10K. She goes, okay, do it. So I did. And I don't know, I didn't even get a mile. And I was like, I know, chest pain. I can't breathe. This is horrible. And I kept trying to run. I could not do it. I overstressed my heart. And for the next couple of days, I had to lay down. It was stress. That's physical stress. And then you have the emotional stress. And is that nothing on your heart? No, that's important for your heart. In fact, there's a syndrome out of Japan, or they named in Japan because they first saw it, where the heart gets super stressed, and it's like a heart attack. You're having chest pain, and the heart is not working properly. It's not contracting normally. So it makes a weird shape on an X-ray, and they call it Takotsubo syndrome, because it looks like an octopus trap, where they trap octopus, and it has kind of a funny shape. And that's what the heart looks like. The heart is so stressed. Where does that stress come from? Well, it was seen in women. It was first noticed. So this was primarily in women who had a lot of emotional stress, like a child dying, that kind of stress. And so the brokenhearted feeling, that kind of stress can also affect your heart in a big way. It's not a minor problem. In the United States, people get what we call angina, which is chest pain. And the chest pain is crushing chest pain, like an elephant sitting on my chest, which is characteristic of a heart attack. And they quick bring them into the operating room, and they put a dye into their arteries to see if they're open, and the arteries are perfectly clear. What the heck? What's going on that they could have clear arteries and have this crushing chest pain, and the EKG is showing they're having a heart attack, but their arteries are perfectly clear? Well, it's called Prinzmetal's angina. Prinzmetal's angina is where the blood vessels constrict, and they constrict for the same reason they constrict everywhere else. You get constriction of blood vessels and high blood pressure when you're under a lot of stress, and you release a lot of adrenaline, norepinephrine, and causes constriction of blood vessels, high blood pressure. but it can also constrict blood vessels to your heart and cause a heart attack. In fact, it's been estimated that about 60% of heart attacks are stress induced. Prinzmetal's angina, stress induced. And you can document both with EKG and with blood tests to show, yes, they actually had a heart attack. They do not have coronary artery disease. This is Prinzmetal's angina. And not to say that it's not significant, because people who have Prinzmetal's angina are more likely to get a heart attack. So it's not that it's unimportant. It's very important. So stress is not a minor problem. It is a major problem.
Wow. Okay. This is very good. Okay. So we have a comment here. Don says, we've talked about the monitors. I wear one and it picks up my heart stress, which of course causes my sugar to go up. Is there a quick fix for this?
Yeah, don't be stressed. Because stress is going to release cortisol, is going to make you resistant to insulin. Your blood sugar is going to go up. And even if you don't eat anything, your blood sugar goes up. That's the dawn effect, right? Your stomach's empty, blood sugar goes up. Why? Because of the stress of waking up. When you wake up, you release a lot of cortisol. That's when we all release cortisol. That's not this kind of stress, like over stress or too much to do and not enough time to do it. But so don't be stressed or relax, or I don't know how to say it, but and don't be insulin resistant. Yeah, fix that too. That would be good.
All right. I'm going to ask some questions as we go here. So John says, I have proximal AFib, and it's been recommended that I start taking Eliquis, sorry. My heart has residual damage from a heart attack long ago, and my ejection factor is 42. You said you had some patients who found that med to be toxic. I also see that it can be as much as $535 a month since I do not have Medicare Part D. Do you have any recommendations of other effective meds that are less expensive?
Oh yeah, well, there's other effective meds that are less expensive. Warfarin's a lot less expensive, except you have to test for it all the time. It is a good idea to have a blood thinner if you have atrial fibrillation. Paroxysmal atrial fibrillation means it comes and it goes. You're in atrial fibrillation, then you're out of atrial fibrillation, and that's actually a good sign, meaning you could go out of atrial fibrillation and stay out and never go back into atrial fibrillation if you build up the energy systems of your heart. And so that's kind of a lot of what we talk about here for heart disease is increasing the energy in your heart, increasing the mitochondria. And some of the ways that you can do that include supplements, some of which we recommend and we have, and getting the sugar glucose to fat ratio right. So if you're burning 60% fat and 40% glucose, then you're going to have an optimal amount of ATP being produced by your mitochondria. If you have less fat because you have insulin resistance and you're burning more sugar because you have high blood sugar, then you're going to have less energy for your heart to use so that you don't go into atrial fibrillation. So you want more energy. So you want to be able to burn fat for energy. So training your body to burn fat means avoiding carbohydrates. That's kind of what it means. So you don't eat sugar, anything that tastes sweet, just avoid it. And people go, what about fruit? That's good for you. Yeah, it's good for you, but it's not good for you. It's good for them. So you have to look at it in terms of what's best for you personally, not generally over a population. So if you have any insulin resistance, then it would be a good idea to avoid carbohydrates. And we have a webinar once a week on Wednesdays where we discuss that specifically. How do you do that? How does it work? What do you do? And then, there's supplements. Okay, and then there's a book you could get about how to thin your blood with the naturally, and it's Reverse Heart Disease Now by Stephen Sinatra. And he talks about you can use nattokinase, lumbrokinase, which are enzymes that dissolve clots. And then you can take fish oil. In fact, if I had atrial fibrillation, now this is just me talking because I've studied this a lot. I've read a ton of books on it and I've looked at research on it. And I've had patients that have had bad side effects from all of the blood thinners. There isn't one of them that isn't a problem. You know, everybody says, well, warfarin's benign. No, warfarin inhibits vitamin K and causes calcium buildup in your arteries and makes hardening of the arteries. I have someone who's in hospice right now dying from that because he took warfarin for years. So it's not a benign, none of them are benign. They all have problems with them, and they're significant enough problems that I would avoid them. So then what would I do instead if I had atrial fibrillation? I would use fish oil. To a large extent, I would avoid omega-6 oils. So omega-6 oils are like corn, soy, and cottonseed oil, all those oils that things are fried in. So if you ever get like chips and you look on there and it says corn, and then either corn oil or soy oil or cottonseed oil, and it depends on what the cheapest one they can get. So that they say, you know, it has one of these oils, one or more of these oils, depending on what was cheapest at the time they happened to make that one. Those kinds of oils are really high in omega-6 and really low in omega-3. I would also avoid, to a large extent, eating corn stuff like chips and stuff like that. And you know, I would have natural corn. Yeah, I don't know, a few times a month or whatever. Have some tortillas and some tacos once in a while. But as far as like a regular basis, I would avoid grains as a rule, and then eat fish and then take fish oil. So I would want my omega-3 to omega-6 ratio to be about 1:1. And then I would be assured that I'm not going to form clots in my arteries.
Very
What would
interesting.
you do about stress then? So like Betsy Summerfield asks, can stress cause AFib? If you had AFib, what would you do about stress? Or can stress lead to AFib?
Well, in a sense, yes, but not really. The stress can induce atrial fibrillation because of as you're stimulating the heart, the stress causes a release of adrenaline, stimulates the heart to beat faster. The heart doesn't have enough energy to maintain that faster heartbeat. So the atrium starts fibrillating because it doesn't all work together anymore. So the stress can do that. But your underlying problem is still the same with atrial fibrillation. And that is there's not enough mitochondria, there's not enough energy in the heart to relax. And so, for example, in Stephen Sinatra's book, Reverse Heart Disease Now, when he talks about that, there are 4 nutrients that are really important for reversing that. L-carnitine, coenzyme Q10, D-ribose, and magnesium. It turns out magnesium's a big deal. And like only 1/3 of the population in most estimates get enough magnesium. That means 2/3 of our population is not getting enough magnesium. And magnesium is required for the relaxation of the heart. And, you know, you think of your heart has to beat, but really the energy requiring step is relaxation, not beating. And so the beating is the automatic part, and then you have to put energy in to relax it. And so if you can't relax it fast enough, then it'll just beat again, and before those cells are ready, and then that'll beat, and then they beat irregularly because of that. So it's kind of important to get enough energy in the heart, and magnesium's a big deal. That's kind of important.
Actually, I'm going to share my screen really quick. I want to show you guys this book. Oops, let me click on the right thing here. I don't know if you guys have ever used thrift books, but this is a really good option to get cheaper books. And so here's the Reverse Heart Disease Now book for $6.59. Good option. If you, I know certain books he mentions a lot, so I thought you guys might want to know where you could get these for a good price. Of course, they're probably on Amazon, but kind of like to do this.
Can I do a follow-up question? Because Susan McCree asks, since you're talking about magnesium, I need to know about magnesium. I take 400 milligrams daily to control my SVTs. I have not had a supraventricular episode for 6 years since taking magnesium recommended by my Kaiser cardiologist. Now I have your supplement, Easy Relief Magnesium, a spray. Could I take too much magnesium by adding the spray to this?
No. The spray is absorbed gradually. It's not. It doesn't raise your levels of magnesium. There's no like rise in magnesium because it's kind of gradually absorbed through the skin. It goes into the lymph system, and it doesn't like. It's not like when you take a dose of magnesium and your magnesium levels go up in your blood. It's more of just adding in the available magnesium. So the answer is no, you couldn't get too much by doing that.
Okay, let's see. Ron said the Healthy Heart book says stress is a major cause of heart disease. In your seminar last week, you said clots are a major cause of heart disease. Did they go hand in hand?
Okay. Yes, they go hand in hand. So the immediate cause of cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, is clots. If you're stressed, then you don't dissolve those clots, you don't organize those clots, you don't pave over those clots, you don't fix the problem, because when you're stressed, you make something called cortisol. That's a catabolic hormone that breaks down your body and doesn't allow repair. Repair happens at night when your cortisol drops down to zero. So if you're stressed all the time, then you don't repair those arteries, and you get the clots forming and the heart disease and all of that. So stress is a major cause, and they go hand in hand with a clotting problem.
Nikki said, my husband just received lab work back and his total cholesterol is 231. HDL 67. LDL, I was waiting for you to keep going. Yeah, okay, good. Let's see, HDL 67, LDL 141, triglycerides 92, non-HDL 164.
Okay.
Glucose is 94. He's giving him 3 months before recommending statins. What can he do to avoid statins?
Okay. He could inform the cardiologist that he has a perfect, almost perfect cholesterol profile. So if you look at what the optimum level of cholesterol is, it is between 220 and 250. And so right around 230 is like the lowest death rate. The mortality drops down as your cholesterol goes down, mortality goes up. So less than 200 increases your mortality. Over 260 increases your mortality. And so that kind of best range is between 220 and 250. And so and your HDL is great. You have a good HDL, and then the triglyceride to HDL ratio is actually more important, and then the total cholesterol HDL ratio are more important than the individual numbers. So the triglycerides being under 100 is really good, and the ratio being less than 2 of triglycerides to HDL is less than 2. It's like 90 to 60, right? So 3 to 2. That's great. That's a good rate. So you have good numbers here. And this is not something that's a risk factor at all. And so if you were to take a statin, you would increase your risk of dying.
Interesting. Okay. David said, I saw a report that 0.5% of the average human brain is plastic. Did you see it? And what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So all these plastics that are showing up everywhere, and everybody, we were told that they were inert and they don't do anything, and they they just go away. But they don't. They persist in the environment and they're everywhere. And the question is, do they do anything? There's some that are hormone disruptors that can affect your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone balances, for example. There may be other endocrine disruptors that affect other things like insulin or glucagon or other neuropeptides, for example. So the answer is we don't know. We don't know if that's really important or not. Are these really inert, like they say, and they don't do anything at all? Or are they damaging, And a lot of things we thought were inert are like, oh, well, actually, that's not really inert. That actually does cause a problem. So there's a significant amount of diabetes that comes from something called titanium dioxide, which is everywhere. Look at your pills. Anything that's white, how do they turn it white? They put titanium dioxide in it to make it white. And so that's the color white is titanium dioxide. So if they want a pill to look white, they put titanium dioxide in it. If they want food to have a nice uniform color, they'll put titanium dioxide. And so that was always considered, well, titanium, that's an inert metal. People have titanium screws and titanium hips and all that stuff because it's thought to be inert. Well, it turns out that it collects in the pancreas and causes diabetes. And there's some evidence for that. So it's not totally inert. So the answer to your question is, I've seen it. It's there. What do you do about it? Is it inert? We don't know. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. Okay, so then having said that, let's look at this from a bigger perspective and say, okay, our environment is toxic. You know what? Human environments have always been toxic in whatever way they're toxic. For millennia, humans have lived with smoke. Whatever they could burn, they're breathing in, whatever that is. And so they're breathing in all these toxins into their lungs. And then the toxic environments that are created by our own waste. And that's our own body's waste, along with whatever waste of whatever we use in our environment. So all of that stuff is toxic, and we've always worried about that. But what's the most toxic thing that causes the most death and disability in our environment currently? What is really toxic? What is going to ruin your life toxic? Well, there's really one primary toxin that does more destruction than anything else by far, by millions, and that is sugar. Plain old table sugar, white sugar, just high fructose corn syrup sugar, coconut sugar, agave nectar sugar, honey. These are the most toxic substances we know of. More people die, more people are blinded, more people are disabled, amputations of their feet, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease. More toxicity happens from sugar than all other toxins combined by 10 times. So take all the toxins in your environment, all the plastics and everything, put them together, and they have this much toxicity, and then sugar's 10 times more than all of that put together. So, put things in perspective and look at, like, people are trying to scare you about toxicities of plastics and the gasoline and all of that stuff. And okay, they're toxic. you know what? Lead is toxic and mercury is toxic. That's all true. But it pales in comparison to the toxicity of sugar.
Wow. There you go, guys. Should we just end the webinar right now? Seems
Really?
like we should. That was great. I mean, good information. And oh boy, and if sugar isn't in absolutely everything. I know we're getting a lot of questions right now. People are saying, but what about maple syrup? But what about stevia? What about monk fruit? Okay, what about all that?
Well, you could get too much of anything and be toxic. It's not that sugar's toxic. It's that we get too much of it, and too much is toxic. So, there's very few things that are toxic at any level, and one of them is mercury. It only takes 5 atoms of mercury to kill a nerve cell. And each gram of mercury has 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. So mercury is extremely toxic. Whereas lead, everybody's got a little bit of lead, and it doesn't do any significant damage or anything. If you get too much, it's going to be toxic. Well, sugar is the same thing. So what about monk fruit? Well, monk fruit's okay, but if you have insulin resistance, monk fruit's going to be toxic for you. Same thing with stevia. Is stevia okay? Well, yeah, generally, but if you get too much of it, or if you have insulin resistance, stevia is going to be toxic to you. And what about maple syrup? Maple syrup is also glucose and fructose. And you know what? It's the glucose is probably not much of an issue. That's not the issue. Probably your biggest issue is fructose. And maple syrup is half fructose and half glucose. And sugar, table sugar, half fructose, half glucose. Agave nectar, same thing. High fructose corn syrup is like 60% fructose and 40% glucose. So, they're all sort of in that same boat, where this toxicity is just too much. It's just getting too much of it.
All right. Krish is back. Welcome, Krish. Will an inflammatory process trigger adrenal to put out stress hormone? Such inflammation cause tumor or polyp or tumor in any organs? Thanks.
Yeah. It depends. It depends on the type of inflammation. There's a lot of different types of inflammation. Allergies, for example, cause a type of inflammation mediated by histamine, and that doesn't cause the adrenal glands to put out any extra hormones. Whereas if you had a cellulitis or an infection, a bacterial infection, that would cause inflammation, red, hot, swollen, tender, and you'd put out more cortisol from that, and you wouldn't be able to manage your blood sugar because of this infection that you had. A systemic infection like the C virus infection, or a flu or colds or something like that, cause the adrenal glands to put out extra cortisol. So when you have those kinds of stress, you need this extra cortisol to stimulate the production of the chemical mediators that you need to fight the infection and the immune system and all those kind of things. So it depends on the type of inflammation that you have to induce, whether it's going to induce more adrenal hormones or not and make you insulin resistant.
Okay, question here from John. Are you at all knowledgeable when it comes to very carefully sourced, strong organic herbs? The website doherbs.com is an excellent resource which I trust. Do you believe in alternative organic treatments? Do you believe alternative organic treatments can be effective in treating AFib?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If they deal with the problem. And as far as the herbs go, no, you know what? I'm not an herbalist. I've used certain herbs, and I'm familiar with certain ones like ashwagandha for stress. I use that a lot. Rhodiola, magnolia. So like those, ginseng, stress related herbs. But man, there's a lot to herbal medicine that I don't know. at all. And so could that help AFib? Absolutely. If there's the herbs that induce the production of mitochondria, improve the energy. We use an herb in a supplement that we have called Cinnachroma, and it's cinnamon bark. That's what it is. It's just the same cinnamon you put on your cinnamon rolls. I hope you're not eating cinnamon rolls. And what it does, it has a lot of effects on helping the body use sugar more efficiently, and having improved insulin sensitivity. And that can help atrial fibrillation. So it's not, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think herbs can be very useful.
All right. Good stuff. Let's see. Elmar said, speaking of ECG, I'm confused about a sinus arrhythmia and first degree atrioventricular block. Is it bad or good? One source says that it doesn't require treatment, but a patient may be asked to monitor heart rate changes. But from the other source, sinus arrhythmia is a common rhythm variation. Its presence is an indicator of good cardiovascular health. Yeah.
So a sinus arrhythmia, I explain it to my patients like this. Oh, you have a sinus arrhythmia because the heartbeat is irregular. It sounds irregular. It'll beat faster and then slow and then fast and slow. And it's not like right on every time. And so I listen to the heart and do an EKG. Oh, you have a sinus arrhythmia. Sinus means the node from the sinus that starts the impulse for the heart to contract, is not beating on a very regular basis. And so I explain it like this. You have a heart that is very sensitive. It's sensitive to pressure. And so when your heart fills up, it just beats. And if it fills up slowly, it'll take a little longer because it's not full yet, and it waits till it's full, and then it beats. And then if it fills up faster, then it beats faster. And that is called a sinus arrhythmia. So think about it this way. You breathe in. As you're breathing in, you drop the pressure in your chest cavity so that your lungs can fill up. So your muscles are stretching out that chest cavity to allow the air to be sucked in to your lungs. Well, what else is in your chest cavity? Your heart. The heart's right in the middle of that. And now you have this low pressure heart with relatively higher pressure coming from the vena cava on both sides. So as you're sucking in air, you're also sucking blood into your heart, and it fills up faster. And then boom, it beats right away. And then you're breathing out when you're compressing your chest cavity to push the air out. At the same time, what else is happening? Well, your heart's in the middle of that, and you're pushing the blood out of the heart, so it's filling slower. So now it's going to take longer between beats as you're breathing out. So as an example, that's just one reason why you would have a sinus arrhythmia, is just the breathing rate. As you're breathing, you're sucking in air, and then you might have 2 or 3 beats in there that are slow, and then you're breathing out, and you have fast. Then you have, as you're breathing out, you might have 2 or 3 beats that are slower. And that's just because your heart is really sensitive to pressure.
Right. Gladys said, last night I started at 4 p.m. mowing my yard, got done about 2 hours later, went in the house and got sick, throwing up many times. Is this a warning for a heart attack?
It could be. Usually there would be like a cough associated with it, like someone coughs and they throw up kind of thing. But nausea is one thing that can happen from a heart attack. Yes, that could be. Dang, get an EKG or something, or a stress echo test would be a good thing to test that.
I have a question. What about hormones and stress in the heart, especially for women who go through menopause or perimenopause? They can get heart palpitations. Doctors may write it off, but will the hormones affect the stress of the heart?
That's a great question. Absolutely. The hormones are the support for a lot of different things. And estrogen has a stimulating effect, and progesterone has a calming effect. And so often, like going into menopause, the estrogen's going like this and the progesterone's going like this. The progesterone is also going up and down, but it's dropping down faster than the estrogen. So now you have more stimulation and less calming effect. So your heart can be faster. You can get supraventricular tachycardia. That was brought up by somebody recently. And what that means is that your heart is beating really fast, but not because of the ventricle needing to beat fast. It's coming from usually the node, the atrium. And you can get anxiety, panic attacks. When I was in medical school 30 years ago, they were telling us menopause has nothing to do with anxiety. It has nothing to do with panic attacks. It has nothing to do with the heart or anything. And then they started doing studies and going, oh, well, actually it does. And so, yeah, the hormones definitely affect that. And so as you're going into menopause, losing that progesterone can be a big deal for some women.
Okay, that's good. Good question. Anonymous said, with long-term warfarin use, can one safely transition to this natural program?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing keeping you on the program. You have to think of it this way. If you're on warfarin, they're adjusting your dose constantly. And if you don't take it one day, you're off. You just don't have it. So yeah, it's something that you can switch over to any other program.
Okay, Debbie said my husband's heart rate was 200 last November when we got to the ER. He now has a pacemaker that keeps his heart from running away. He first started with Eliquis, but was put on warfarin, which he has to test his blood weekly and call it in. He averages 2, and they're happy with that. I know you have covered this, but what can he safely change warfarin to and have better life expectancy?
Well, see, here's where the problem comes in. So if your heart rate's 200 and you have atrial fibrillation, that's atrial fibrillation with a rapid response, and so your heart's beating too fast, and often it doesn't fill as fast. It doesn't fill up all the way when it beats, so you could get not enough blood flow, and then what happens is you start forming clots in the atrium, and those can break off, and because they're right in the middle of the circulation, right? They're in the heart, and then the clot just goes off into the body. And 20% of your blood goes to your brain. So, if you're breaking off clots, 1 out of 5 is going to go up to your brain. The rest of them are going to go somewhere else in your body, and you won't even notice it, or may not. Hardly anybody ever notices those. But the brain is very sensitive to blood flow. So you clot off one of your arteries in your brain, and you're going to have a stroke. So the prevention of stroke is very important. And so the 2 things to do to deal with this, one is to fix the atrial fibrillation. In other words, get the energy systems back to your heart functioning again. And then the second part is prevention of clotting, which you want to do anyway. And so I already said what I would do. And I suppose anybody could do that program. You could look at the Dr. Sinatra's program. He's a cardiologist, and he's done a lot of research on this. And just so that you know, being on warfarin is no guarantee either. Missing a dose, all of a sudden your clotting comes back, and boom, now you've got clots, and you end up with a stroke. And people who are on warfarin still get strokes, and they also get bleeding problems, excessive bleeding or hemorrhagic strokes. So, there's no guarantees either way, and there's nothing magical about, oh, if I take warfarin, I won't get a stroke. That's not reality. So you have to look at what are the risks, what are the benefits long term. I prefer to look long term instead of the every medication gives you 4 hours of relief, and then and what do I do after that? If it's another medication, then let's try something else more long term.
Mary wants to know if you use raw unfiltered honey in moderation, is that okay and not being too toxic?
No. Okay.
We need our sugar, Dr. Saunders. We need our sweet.
I know. I get it. I'm doing a ketogenic diet right now. And man, my mom cut up a bunch of melon, a honeydew melon. I love honeydew melon. and all I could have was some eggs. So anyway, the honey, raw, unfiltered, people who are marketing stuff put these words in to dilute out the fact that you're drinking a toxin. And so, yeah, this thing is toxic, but it tastes good, or it's good for you, or it's unadulterated, or it's natural. And so they use all these terms to give you an idea that it's good for you when it's not. So, yeah.
Ellis says, is it good to exercise after you have a metric valve clip?
Exercise after you have a metric.
Trickle. Wonder if that's supposed to be one word. Metrical valve, metric.
Huh.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
Let me see if I can figure it out actually.
Okay, while you're answering that question.
Mitra clip?
Mitral valve?
Yeah. Question.
Wait. I didn't hear all that. Say it again.
I think you broke up, Leslie.
Oh, Ella, you let us know what you're asking. And then Cheryl has a question for us in the meantime.
Yeah. Well,
okay, so mitral valve. Ella just wrote in. She says mitral valve clip. Yes, you should exercise. Absolutely. The mitral valve clip holds it together so that you don't get so much regurgitation. Yeah. Did your doctor say you shouldn't? I wouldn't know why that would be, but yeah, ask the surgeon that put the clip in. But generally, yes.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to read a question from Edith, but it's kind of incomplete. It says, I am experiencing weight loss, over 20 pounds since I began the supplement list suggested by Jason last April for the Healthy Heart Program, but I don't want to lose any more. Which supplements would be contributing to weight loss? Now, Leslie asked her, which supplements are you taking? But we haven't heard back from her.
Yeah. So 20-pound weight loss. Okay, the supplements themselves, I don't know. She's probably taking berberine. She may be taking lean ACV, but that would be obvious, right? To cause weight loss. I don't know.
Also, maybe healthy gut. If you're not having normal stools and you start taking healthy gut and you're normal, you could probably lose some weight there too.
Yeah.
We'll see if she responds to that. Okay, there was another question that had come in. Oh, David had said it sounds like sinus arrhythmia is not that serious and maybe normal. Is it not dangerous?
Not dangerous. No, not at all. It's very normal. It's just having a sensitive heart. It's great.
Okay, Anonymous said dental implants are titanium.
Yes, often they are. Okay. You can get other things, but yeah, they're often titanium. And so the question is, does that equate to the titanium dioxide that shows up in the pancreas and is related to or associated with diabetes? And that's where nobody knows. This research is brand new out of Texas. They just barely did this study on the titanium dioxide and finding it accumulated in the pancreas associated with diabetes. But that's an association, not necessarily causation. Do we know? We don't know. But, it's potentially toxic.
Hmm. Let's see. Oh, we did get a response here too. Edith was taking healthy gut, healthy heart, cinechroma, turmeric, maybe lean apple cider vinegar.
Yeah. But weight loss, that much weight loss, there must be a change in diet or something, because none of those are going to really make you burn fat unless you're not eating, unless you've changed the diet. So if you've changed the diet, that would be a significant cause of weight loss. But the supplements themselves don't usually cause that much weight loss.
Not even lean ACV.
Not even lean A. The idea of lean ACV is to take it in the evening so you're not hungry, so you don't eat before bed. That's really kind of where that goes. And it works pretty well because then people can take the lean ACV in the evening and then not eat before bed, and that's a good way to lose weight. And there was along those same lines here in Santa Barbara. There was a company that had a weight loss pill, and you take it at 5 o'clock at night, and then you don't eat afterward until the next morning. And people were losing weight like crazy. It was working. It was like a really good pill. And then the Federal Trade Commission had it tested, and it was just a placebo. It was lactose. It was just so this placebo pill was working. And even after people who were told, look, this was just a placebo, they go, I don't care. It worked for me. I need that pill. And the FTC said, nope, nope, nope. So, the idea of lean ACV is you're going to take it, you're not going to be hungry in the evening, and you're going to be able to wait till the morning to eat, and that's going to help you lose weight, and it does help.
Julia said, I have several silver fillings. Is it worth it to replace them?
Good question. Okay, so here you have this toxic mercury issue, right? I already told you that mercury is never non-toxic, that it is always toxic at any level. And here you have your mouth full of mercury. Now what do I do? If I get it taken out, does that mobilize all the mercury and spread it all over my body? If I just leave it there, will it just stay there? You know what? I have done thousands of toxicity tests. I have done thousands of these tests, and I have never had a correlation of mercury in the teeth correlating with levels of toxicity of mercury in the body. And I just have not seen it. And I have had one or two cases, I think there were two, where they had all their mercury removed and their mercury level went up. So that's a possibility. You have to be really careful. And I know a dentist here in Santa Barbara, there's only like 2 dentists that will remove mercury fillings, and they put this rubber dam in there that and so that only the tooth is exposed, and then they have a suction machine right there sucking any vapors that come off everything. I don't know. I don't know. Personally, I tell people that ask me that, I say, if the tooth isn't bothering you, leave it alone.
That's good info. Okay. Don said some cardiologists will advise eat a heart healthy diet and avoid red meat as much as possible. My question is, avoiding meat necessary? And is grass-fed meat any more better?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the problem is not cholesterol. The problem is not saturated fat. Avoiding meat does not improve your chances or improve your risks of heart disease. If you have fat with sugar, that's a problem. So if you're eating, a steak and potatoes, that's an issue. But If you have a steak and broccoli, then it becomes a non-issue at that point. So what was the other question?
Is grass-fed meat any
Grass-fed.
better?
Yeah. I wanted to address that. Okay. So when studies are done on beef, if you have corn-fed beef, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is about 11. So that means 11 times more omega-6 than omega-3. If you have pure grass-fed beef, grass-fed, grass-finished, and that means they weren't sent to a feedlot and fed corn, right? Because a lot of times they'll eat grass as they're growing, and then right before they go to slaughter, they send them to a feedlot and they stuff them with corn to fatten them up. So if it's grass-fed all the way through their lives, then it's about 4. So they have 4 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And that is a significant difference. So, I prefer grass-fed. When I go to the store, I buy grass-fed beef. And then there's nothing magical about chicken over beef, by the way. That's most chicken is fed corn, and the ratio in chicken is not any better than it is in beef fat. And that's more important than, saturated fat or cholesterol. And by the way, every kind of meat has the same amount of cholesterol. So if anybody tells you that it's a cholesterol problem, that's not even an issue. Yeah.
Oh, we're over time. Okay, Dr. Saunders, thank you so much. This was great.
Right.
See you
Welcome.
next week.
Okay, bye.
And again, you guys can go to bartonwebinar.com to get more information about the webinars, our products, etc., and use code webinar25 to save 25%. Anything else?
Come back with your questions. Dr. Saunders loves to answer them. We love to hear the answers. We love having you here.